Mhm. Good morning, dear Zhuldyz. I think it's in morning in the United States. Thank you for agreeing to participate in our meeting, and good evening to those who are listening to us from Europe and Asia. Thank you for coming to our meeting. So as far as I know, Zhuldyz, you prepared for us the presentation. So before starting it, can you please tell us about yourself, your academic and educational background? Thank you.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Greetings from snowy and cold Minnesota. Thank you so much for joining my talk today, and thank you for organizing this meeting. Amuldur, I really appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to share about my experience. And so before I start, I'd actually just like to give an outline of my presentation today, which I structured based on the questions from Mulder. So I'll briefly share about my background and then how I decided to pursue a PhD and the application process. And I'll also talk about my research topic journey, and then discuss some of the peculiarities of the PhD program in the US, and share some of the challenges that I faced along the way, and conclude with my support systems that helped me to overcome those challenges. And then we will open to questions. And if you feel compelled to ask a question while I'm presenting, please feel free to jump in. So my background, so I have a bachelor's in English language and literature, and then I have master's in economics and business, and I also have master's in educational leadership, higher education specialization specifically. And in terms of my professional experience, I have an extensive experience as in administrative and managerial roles in international organizations such as European Union. But my experience at Nazarbayev University actually played a critical role in motivating me to pursue a PhD, and I'll talk about that in more detail in the next few minutes. But before I do that, I want to actually go back to where I started where I started my journey. And this is the village where I spent most of my early childhood. My grandmother in the village took care of me from the time I was 1 year old, while my parents worked and lived in the city. Although my grandmother didn't attend any school after the 8th grade, she believed in the transformative power of education, and she shared her wisdom with me. And my parents also invested in educating me and my siblings. So my family instilled in me the love for learning and hard work. So pursuing a PhD was a family decision for me. I wouldn't have come this far without the support of my family, including my husband, my parents, and my in-laws. So now I'd like to talk about my intellectual journey towards pursuing a PhD. And as I already mentioned, Nazarbayev University played a critical role in motivating me to pursue a PhD. And there were multiple factors, and some of them I want to highlight. The first is people I met at Nazarbayev University. So my experience of working with professors and being part of, the establishment of such an ambitious project has been truly inspiring. We were, creating new policies and procedures. I was working closely with faculty and learning about their journey. So learning about Nazarbayev University's faculty's life history, life journey, really inspired me to pursue a similar career. And the second, as an administrative staff member at Nazarbayev University, I developed a strong interest in student support. I also became aware that the transitional experiences of Nazarbayev University, when they transition from school to university, is very important to their academic success. Based on this professional experience, I became interested in studying how their transition from school to university can be structured to maximize the likelihood of their success while they are in the university. So I also, so being a staff member, I was really interested in experiencing being a student at this university. So I applied for a master's program at Nazarbayev University Graduate School of Education. And when I initially started the program, I wasn't quite sure in my skills and abilities. In other words, I was, I think, going through imposter syndrome. However, I ended up being quite successful in the program. I enjoyed doing research. I enjoyed learning, about different theories and methodologies and connecting with faculty and my peers in the program. I studied the transition experiences of Nazarbayev University freshmen in my master's thesis. And I also further explored this same topic on transition experiences of students in the larger context of Kazakhstan being part of the Nazarbayev University Graduate School of Education Research Institute team. So that was really kind of helpful for me in expanding my research interests further. And so to summarize, I'm really grateful for Nazarbayev University faculty and administrators who encouraged me to pursue a PhD. And my experience there helped me to understand that I do want to pursue a PhD to further explore the topics that were of interest to me. And next, the application process. So I shared that I knew I wanted to pursue a PhD. I was confident that that's what I want to do, but I wasn't quite sure that I can do it as a young mother. So at the time, I was pursuing a master's degree at Nazarbayev University. I was pregnant. I actually had my son 2 weeks after I defended my master's thesis. So, and it was a very intensive program. It's 1.5 years, so that's very intensive. And trying to decide, whether I can or cannot do a PhD with a young child, I talked to one of the professors at Nazarbayev University. She had 3 kids, and she actually also did her PhD at the University of Minnesota. So talking to her really inspired me to move forward with my application. She was my role model in making this decision. And as you know, one of the requirements of applying for a PhD program in the US is a GRE exam. And I didn't have much time to prepare for the GRE exam because, as I said, it was an intensive program, and I didn't really have an opportunity to prepare when I was doing my master's degree. So I also had some complications during my delivery. This was my first child, so it took some time for me to recover, and I couldn't start preparation until October, and my GRE was in November. So I only had less than a month to prepare for the test, and I haven't taken GRE in the past, so that period was only enough for me to familiarize myself, with the structure of the test, what it's all about. And but I think what helped me was that I was a fresh graduate, and I conducted a mixed method study for my master's thesis. There is like quantitative reasoning, so I think that was helpful for me, that I was a fresh graduate. And so I successfully passed the test. And one thing, I want to mention about GRE, I think GRE is not the most significant factor that determine your admission to the program. A growing number of programs actually are dropping GRE as an application requirement. Recent studies showed that there is little correlation between GRE scores and success in graduate school. So there are also concerns that the test puts underrepresented groups at a disadvantage. So that's one thing that I think most people don't want to apply to the US because of this GRE requirement. It takes a lot of time and energy to prepare for the test. So keep that in mind. And also the other thing, the committee actually looks at the whole package when they're considering your application. And GRE does not tell the story of who you are, why you are applying to the program. And I would actually spend enough time writing a compelling story of your journey towards a PhD, and like in your motivation letter about your research interests and why you think you are a good fit for this program. And I would also seek feedback from faculty and your peers on your motivational letters, and also allow enough time for faculty to write recommendation letters for you. So another, I think, tips that I would share in terms of application is researching the institutions that you want to apply is very critical. So I would spend enough time studying faculty profiles and researching the universities, and then also trying to connect to current students in the institutions that you want to apply. They can share a lot about the department culture and then their experience. For instance, I get connected and I'm always happy to share about my experience. So I think that's very helpful in making the decision of the choice of the university. And how I made the choice about the university. So there were several factors. I think again, as I mentioned, I talked to faculty, and one of them was a graduate of the University of Minnesota. She graduated from the same department, so it was very helpful for me to talk to her, and she shared a lot of insights about this department and about the program. And then also cost of living was a big factor for us. We didn't apply to big cities like New York, Boston. I wasn't considering them because of the cost of living. You know, when you are moving with a family, it's very expensive to live in those big cities. So, and then the third one is, you know, family-friendly environment. So we wanted something that was very convenient for families. So Minnesota was actually among the top choices for us of the universities. So I was very happy when I was admitted to the program. So that's, I think that's about the PhD application process, and I can answer if you have more questions during the Q&A session. My research topic journey. So in the US, you are taking coursework. You have a required coursework, a certain number of credits that you have to complete, but you are also simultaneously figuring out your research topic, and then also going through the process of, you know, exams and defending your proposal. And this image on the left that you see is actually represents very accurately the process of research topic for me. I was very ambitious in the beginning of the program. I remember I had meetings with my supervisor, and I would share my research interests and what I want to do for my dissertation, and then my advisor would say, you know, all of this sounds wonderful, but you can write like 5 dissertations out of this. So let's figure out what would be your specific focus. So narrowing down my research topic was very challenging for me. I kept wanting to accomplish more with my dissertation. So I was very ambitious. And I think it's actually very common among my peers to view your dissertation as a masterpiece. You want this to be your like best work, as it's your like entry point to the field, and your like in the field of your expertise, and that puts a lot of pressure. And I also kept chasing what others would find most interesting and important, like, you know, policymakers, and so I kept chasing what others would find interesting. However, the breakthrough, I think, for me came in the process of deep reflection on my own experience, on my own life story. And it was a very transformative moment for me as I started appreciating my own experience in much more complex way. I started seeing it much more complex way than I did ever before. You know, a PhD was the first degree I was pursuing, but I don't think I took enough time to do that deep reflection on my experience and my positionalities before before this time. So that was very helpful. So upon reflecting on my own experience, I became interested in studying the experiences of youth from similar backgrounds that I am. So the puzzle for me was why some marginalized youth find opportunities for academic and career success while others do not. In my dissertation, I examined the factors that facilitate or constrain educational and career aspirations of youth from marginalized rural and or low-income backgrounds in Kazakhstan, and I hope to develop structures to support educational and career aspirations of more students from marginalized rural and low-income backgrounds. So that's my research topic journey. I want to note one more thing about research topic. I remember one of our professors at Nazarbayev University mentioned that finding the right topic is like marrying the right person. So your relationship with your topic has a big impact on your academic career. So while I partially agree, with this statement, since I do think it's important to study the topic that you are really passionate about. At the same time, I think it's critical to keep in mind that your dissertation topic does not have to be the thing you research your entire life. Your research interests will expand as you enhance your knowledge of a certain, topic, and then sometimes it may even shift because you develop interdisciplinary connections with your colleagues. So what I want to say is that your PhD dissertation is just the beginning of your research journey. So I think that thinking of like putting it in that perspective is really helpful, and then kind of takes off some of the pressure that you feel of making it feel like it has to be the best work and it has to be the masterpiece. So that's about my research topic journey. So now I want to transition talking about the PhD program in the US. And this is actually, this was a handout when I started in my first semester. I think it was in our orientation or something, and you can even see my notes here. I found this one. So there are several steps, and then you read this from left to right. Like you start taking your courses, and then GPAS is like a degree program where you write your plan for completing the degree, and then establishing your preliminary committee. So it has to be at least 4. It's a committee member for your dissertation. So there has to be 4 members in your committee, and 1 has to be an outside member outside of your department. Then written prelim exam is the next milestone, which is take-home exam, 25 double-spaced pages. And to take this exam, you have to write a proposal. And then if your proposal is successful, you can write the exam. And you are given 3 months to write this exam. And if you pass this exam, there can be like, you pass, or you pass with revisions, or fail. So if you pass, then you can move to the next step. If you pass with revisions, you revise, and then you move to the next step. And the next step is probably one of the biggest ones. It's a special paper. A special paper is basically, you can think about special paper as a chapter 1 and chapter 2 of your dissertation. So you critically review the literature in the area of your interest, and then you also discuss your research problem, and then conclude with potential research questions for your study. I think it's typically 30, 50 pages, but there is no limit. So my special paper was over 90 pages. So that's that. After that, you have oral prelim exam. Oral prelim is you discuss your oral special paper with your committee members. So it's an oral exam. You discuss and then you discuss your potential research questions, and you discuss your theoretical framework. So that's the oral prelim exam. And then if you are successful, then you become a PhD candidate after that. And then the next stage is you can start taking your thesis credits. So by this time, you have to be already done with all of your coursework. Thesis credits is the time when you start working on your research, your dissertation research, and the prospectus meeting is similar to the methodology section of your dissertation. You write your methodologies, and then there is again like a meeting with your committee members where you discuss your research design and your plan, and they provide you feedback. Then you do your study. So I'm currently in the do your study phase of my dissertation. So that's like briefly about the big milestones of completing a PhD. And then I wanted to share, as I shared, like, the biggest difference is probably the required coursework in the PhD program. And here is, of course, there are like differences between different programs. So I'm in education program, and this is the requirement for this, for our program. And we have to take 48 credits of coursework and 24 thesis credits. And then those coursework requirements, you have departmental core requirements, and then like some specific methods courses, and the program core requirements, and then specialization courses, and the rest electives. So that's briefly about the PhD, the curriculum requirements of completing the PhD. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them during the Q&A session. Or if you have questions now, feel free to ask them now as well. So,
Zhuldyz,
yeah.
Can you please tell, how would you characterize the quantitative course? Was it good or was it useful for you?
Quantitative courses? Yes, yeah. I took statistics courses and I did find them useful. So I think depending on your previous knowledge of the quantitative methods, you can either start taking more advanced, or you can start from introductory courses. And I actually would recommend taking more methods courses. So that's that would be my recommendation.
If you compare that quantitative courses with that you surely took when you study in Nazarbayev University, was that how would you compare it? If it's
I think I wouldn't really compare them, because in master's program and then in PhD program, they were different, because in our master's program, we have one semester when we take courses, and they actually combine quantitative and qualitative, and then it's very intensive, and it tries to give you a big overview, and I remember our professor at Nazarbayev University would tell us each class, one class can be an entire semester of coursework. So you don't have enough time to really deep dive into all of the methods. So that's like a big overview of the quant methods, and then getting your feet wet, basically, just so that you have an understanding of the methods and then some basics. But when you are taking quantitative courses here, they focus in they are more focused, and then I think that they are different for that reason. I wouldn't say, oh, this is I wouldn't kind of compare in terms of quality. It's just they are structured differently, and then because of how master's program is structured, and because of what's required to know to successfully complete the master's program. So it's different than what's required to be successful in doing a quantitative methods work for your PhD dissertation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Здравствуйте, Zhuldyz. У меня такой вопрос. При поступлении в университет, который вы говорили, Миннесота, да, там вы получили по Балашах стипендии, или же это университет сам дал стипендию? И вопрос, вы сказали, что в Америке там в основном со второго курса студенты преподают. Вы преподавали или как это все идет?
Да, хороший вопрос. Кстати, следующий слайд я буду как раз говорить про то, что я делала каждый год. Но я могу вам быстро ответить. Да, у меня Балашах, я подала на Балашах программу и преподавала. С третьего курса я начала преподавать, начала как teaching assistant, сейчас как primary instructor преподаю тот же курс. Там, получается, можно подавать, если вы хотите работать teaching assistant, но я скажу, очень трудно найти position, on-campus position в университете. Нелегко, очень competitive, в этом плане. И тем более, мне кажется, один нюанс, как Болашак, ну, у нас же есть, получается, full coverage, у нас есть стипендия, да, и we don't have a need. И в нашем департаменте, допустим, есть студенты, у которых нет scholarship, и они в приоритете, я не была в приоритете. Я, кстати, не смогла найти как бы ассистент в своем департаменте, потому что всегда приоритет идет based on need, and I didn't have the need, that's why I wasn't the priority. Вот этот момент, мне кажется, очень важный, ну, как бы когда... Но, конечно, опыт нужен, это очень важно, тем более, если вы рассматриваете карьеру, да, academic career, both teaching and research experience is very important. Как бы поэтому я искала, и вот с 3-го курса начала преподавать.
Еще один вопрос. Извините, забыла представить. Меня зовут Кундуз. Я сейчас здесь завершаю свою PhD-программу, но думаю, как бы поступить или там хочу университет, все равно зарубежный университет попробовать поступить. Есть ли у них как возрастные ограничения или можно ли после PhD подать на PhD?
Ой, насколько я знаю, нету никаких возрастных ограничений. У меня были согруппницы, как бы, ну, ровесники моей мамы, поэтому здесь нету как бы ограничений никаких, мне кажется, нет. И я не думаю, что это будет какой-то минус, что у вас уже есть PhD. Наоборот, наверное, у вас будет уже больше experience, ну, который вы можете описать, и вам нужно будет просто, если вы меняете сферу, да, немножко другую, ну, как бы вот объяснить, как, why you want to pursue a PhD, why this program, ну, motivation letter, мне кажется, если все расписать, почему бы и нет.
Спасибо за ответы большое.
Не за что. Если еще будут вопросы, буду рада ответить. Тогда я продолжу, да? Okay. So now I want to transition to talking about the challenges and this line. So when you start a PhD, I think there might be an understanding of this, you know, you have a start, then there is an end, like of this straight line. Actually, this is not my image, and I couldn't find the exact source, but it's somewhere from, I think, one of the PhD groups shared this with me, and I really find it helpful in visualizing the journey. So you have, like, you know, a lot of, it's like more curvy line where you have ups and downs, good experiences, bad experiences, you know, celebrations. So that's just a visual image that's very helpful for me to see the journey. And in this slide and the next slide, I want to share about how I was integrating my personal and professional life and what challenges I faced along the way. You know, when you are embarking on a new journey, there are a lot of uncertainties, and we didn't know what was what to expect. And my husband and I decided to trust the process, and I faced, I think the biggest challenge for us was integrating personal and professional life. So that's why I kind of differentiated here some of the blue text as the events that were happening in my personal life, and then black as the events that were happening in my professional life. Of course, it's not the complete list, but I just wanted to share some of the highlights, and I will not be going through every event, just share some highlights to give you an idea. And I already talked about my application 2015. So starting from 2016, as I shared, I received an invitation in their early, I think sometime in January from the university, and then I applied for a Bolashak program. And after I was awarded the scholarship, we moved to the US with our son. As you know, there is a lot that goes with moving process for a family with a child. And I'm not only a student, I'm a mother, wife, and daughter. So all of these roles have their competing responsibilities. And as you can imagine, moving from one country to another country is a big transition for any individual. And in this process, any international student faces challenges in adapting to new campus life, your new academic requirements. And in addition to that, we also had a mountain of questions, related to the transition of our family. And my husband didn't speak English when we came, so that was also a challenge. And he was very supportive, so I was able to successfully complete my first semester in the program. And then 2017 was full of events for us. I made my first presentation in the largest professional association in our field, Comparative and International Education Society, CIES, and we were expecting our second child, and we had to make some adjustments to our plans. My husband at that time started working, and then he was also taking English classes, and my mom visited us, and she helped with childcare. But she couldn't stay long, so we decided to send our older son to Kazakhstan. It was a very, I was, at that time still taking classes. I had summer classes, and my husband couldn't leave his job, so we couldn't afford a daycare. It's very expensive to send kids to daycare here. So this seemed like the only option at that time. But it was very difficult to be away from our son, and we ended up inviting him back after a few months. And I took an academic leave to take care of my kids in the fall semester. So in 2018, returning to school after one semester of academic leave was very challenging for me. I think 2018 was the most challenging year for me. Our older son was 2 years old, and then my younger son was only 3 months old when I returned to my academic program. And my older son actually had a difficult time transitioning to his role as a big brother. And I was taking classes, and I was also working on my written prelim exam. So that was like a very challenging time, demanding time in my academic life as well. And it was difficult for me to study on campus all day long as a nursing mother. My heart ached that I couldn't nurse my son as much as I wanted to, and also at night I remember my older son would wake up each time I wake up to nurse my younger son, so we had a lot of sleepless nights. And my husband had also had a very busy schedule. He was working full-time and also attending English classes. So I'm very grateful my parents helped us with kids, and we also started sending our older son to daycare. That was very helpful too. And I would not have been able to study at all without the support of my parents. So that support was very critical to do that. I remember they spent like many sleepless nights when I had deadlines and I had to work all night, and it wasn't easy for my parents to come to the US because they didn't know language, and the weather conditions were not very favorable to them. And then it's a lot of work to take care of young kids. So that wasn't easy for them, but I'm very, very grateful that they supported us along this journey. And that was, so 2018 was also the year I started working as a TA, and then I published my first article in a peer-reviewed journal. My grandmother, with whom I was very close, as I mentioned, passed away that year, and it was very emotionally difficult period for me. And highlights of 2019 was taking my oral prelim exam, which is the biggest milestone in our program. Then I became a PhD candidate, and then I started being actively engaged in our association, CIES, Eurasia SIG. I was elected as a secretary, and then so that was my some of the events in 2019. 2020. So my original plan for 2020 was to travel to Kazakhstan in the spring semester to conduct my fieldwork. However, due to the dynamically, changing situation with COVID-19, I had to change my fieldwork plans in a way so I could conduct my fieldwork online. I actually had my prospectus, which is our methodology, prospectus scheduled for the first week after the spring break. exactly at the time when things started to dramatically change in the US. I think until this moment, I remember, like, you know, when, what day, what day of the week that was, and how it changed and all that. It just, in a matter of a few days, everything changed. And so COVID actually had a significant impact on my process towards my dissertation. Things, you know, also got complicated because we did not send our kids to daycare, and my parents could not come to help us. So I have become the full-time childcare provider, and I couldn't work. I only could work at nights a few hours after my kids went to bed. So that also kind of influenced my progress. Although I planned to complete my data collection in the spring semester of 2020, I actually spent my spring and summer semester revising my research design and then modifying my IRB application, which is ethics review application. So that kind of delayed my progress a lot. So that's, I think, a summary of 2020. And if you have any questions, I can answer, but I want to transition to talk about what helped me to overcome some of these challenges. PhD can be a lonely journey if you don't invest time in building community. And I do believe that it takes a village to raise a PhD, and I'm really grateful for the community that supported me throughout this journey. Without their support, I wouldn't have come this far. Honestly, you know, when I look back at these 4 years, what I remember the most are the times that we spent together with my family and my peers in the program whom I met along this journey. And I'm grateful that I had that community with whom I could cry, you know, laugh and enjoy the process. So in sum, I think who helped me to overcome the challenges, first of all, it's my family. And I always say, it feels like we are doing this PhD together. My entire family is pursuing a PhD with me together. My husband, my kids, my parents, my siblings. So that feels like that for me. And then second, of course, peers in my program. A lot of times, only PhD students actually get what PhD students are going through. So with my peers, I only need to say, you know, these are the courses I'm taking and this is the exam I have to work on, and they just get what it takes to go through that process. So we were able to build that community. That was very important for me. And the third, of course, support of your professors. I was lucky to have a very supportive and understanding supervisor, and I also had great professors who supported me along the way, and I always asked questions, and you know, that was very important. That support was also very important for me. And some of the, so I think I want to share how to build a community. As I said, it can be difficult to find time to build the community, especially as a graduate student parent. You have competing responsibilities, and it's extremely difficult to find time for events, you know, attending events and spending time with your friends. However, I cannot emphasize enough how that's important to make time to build the community. And some of the things that helped me and helped us in our program was that in our department, our cohort stayed together. You know, in the PhD program, everyone has their own schedule. We are not taking classes together most of the time, but we try to stay together, and then we organized some weekly events, and then we celebrated, you know, together our smallest and biggest milestones, and we learned about each other's culture and shared traditions. So we had a mix of backgrounds in our friendship group. So that was really great. And we also provided each other feedback, you know, on our projects and our exams. And we even practiced together, like we would do mock oral exams, and then we would pretend that we are the committee member and then ask questions as if we are in the exam. So that was very helpful. And we even practiced job interviews together. We would conduct mock job interviews. And I also used to bring my kids and my family to the events with my friends. So my kids became like cohort kids in my program. So that was really great. So I think those were the things that helped us. And it also helped that we live in a cooperative, which is for graduate students. There are a lot of grad students' parents in the community where we live. So we could immediately connect with each other, with other grad student parents. So that, I think relationship with neighbors was also very important for us. So that's actually all from my side, like briefly about my journey, and then I'd like to open it for questions.
Wow, thank you very much. Such an awesome presentation, Zhuldyz. It was quite overwhelming, actually. You have such a rich experience, yeah, and so many challenges. I'm happy for you that you overcame them, and you're already in your 5th year, so closer to finish line.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, dear listeners, you're welcome to ask.
Zhuldyz, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting and useful. And Zhuldyz, maybe I missed something, but so your PhD is a 4-year PhD or 5-year PhD, and also you said you passed oral exam and became PhD candidate, but you were PhD candidate from very beginning, no?
Thank you, Arman.
That's a great question. I think it's very confusing, and I'm happy to explain. Mother, did you have something to add?
No, I just said thank you, Arman.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great question. So PhD candidate and PhD student, which I learned when I started the program, are two different statuses or two different things. You start the program as the PhD student, and you become the candidate when you defend your proposal. So until you defend your proposal, which was our oral exam, you are a student because you are taking courses and then you are working on your research proposal and figuring out what is your research topic. But when you defend your proposal, it tells, when you're a PhD candidate, it tells that you are working on your dissertation. So now you've defended your research proposal, and then your committee approved it, and now you can work on your dissertation. So that's the moment when you become the candidate. So that's the difference. So it's like, I don't know if you're familiar, ABD, all but dissertation status.
No.
So there is, it's called ABD, all but dissertation, meaning that I've completed all the requirements of my program except my dissertation. So the only requirement, because there were many milestones that I had to go through, but all of those requirements were completed. And the only requirement for me now is to actually conduct my study, write it up and defend. So I have basically one exam that I have to go through, which is the defense of my dissertation. And at this stage, so I'm working primarily with my supervisor. While until, when I'm a student, I take courses, I talk to other professors, and then I decide who is my committee. I talk to committee members and invite them to be my committee member. So that's that process. But after that, when you become a candidate, you also confirm this is the final list of my committee, then you start working on your dissertation.
Did I understood correctly that it took about 3 years for you to do literature review, write proposal, and taking courses, right?
Yeah, it's roughly about 3 years, because I had to take an academic leave. It's kind of, I think, difficult to say how many exact years. I started taking my thesis credits in 2020 of spring semester. Until that, I was still taking the coursework requirements. And then when there are actually, for instance, when you, to take the written prelim exam, which is the first exam, which is 25-page, it's like a literature review, but it's much shorter than the special paper, because you are exploring the literature in the area of your interest. And you have to take, by that time, you have to take at least 20 credits. 20 credits is, one course is about 3 credits in the American system. So, and we have 48 credits total. Yeah, I think roughly most people do it in 2.5, 3 years.
Okay. And when are you going to complete your PhD, pass the viva, write the dissertation?
Currently, I am working on my dissertation. So I collected my data, almost done collecting my data. Then I will be analyzing and I don't know how it's in the UK, but in the US, you don't have the set time actually. When you say, okay, I'm starting this program and I will finish in 5 years. In our program, they have the requirement that you complete in 8 years maximum. But average is some people complete 3.5, which is very rare. Most people, I think, take 4 or 5 years. Some may take longer. So that's the difference. But of course, as a Bolashak scholar, I do have a set time and a set funding for a number of years. And when I applied for Bolashak, I developed a program with my advisor. Before I applied to Bolashak, the program was for 5 years.
Okay, now I understood. Thank you very much. May I ask another final question?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Do you have any requirements in university, requirements to publish? No, or some kind of pressure?
We don't have any requirement to publish. It's not required to publish. Of course, it's great if you can publish during your program, but it's not a requirement. Yeah, so there is no such requirement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So similar to the UK requirements, we also don't have to publish. That's interesting, but it seems like US has a lot more exams to submit in comparison with the UK system, because we have a first year confirmation, so it's like mini viva we call it. And after that, if you pass, you are considered a PhD candidate. Yeah, or PhD student.
Yeah, I think the difference is that there is no coursework requirement, and you actually write a proposal before being admitted to the program in the UK, right?
Yes, there are a few courses. For example, in my case, I have to submit 20 credits, I think, in my first year, 2 courses. They also require like small courseworks, but it's not lasting 1 or 3 years. So
Yeah,
it's first year only.
And one thing that I want to note, do not take my experience as generalizable to the American experience of PhD program. This is the experience of one student in a specific program. There are differences even in within this department. There are differences between the requirements. So this is the requirements of my program, and this is my experience, which may not apply to the experiences of other students especially in different fields. I'm in education, so that's, I think, important to consider as well.
So I would like to ask a question about your research thesis. So your topic is about, so far as I understood, providing equal access to the students from rural areas. Is it
rural and or low income backgrounds? Yes, yeah.
So recently I read an article, I think in one of the local sites, that the inequality in education is rising in Kazakhstan due to the, some schools are getting more funding than the average state schools. And also after the COVID situation. So what do you think are the main solutions in order to decrease this inequality? Because this is a very serious matter, I think, for our country. Inequality in education leads to more poverty leads to more crime rate, to higher crime rate in the country. So
yes, yeah. That's.
Do you think like the Nazarbayev University will be helping to solve this matter, or what do you think? It's just interesting to hear your opinion.
Yes, sure. I wouldn't have studied this topic if I knew the solution, to be honest, because it's a very complex issue, and that's why I am researching this, topic. And if you ask me, if we have a talk after I defend my dissertation, or by the time I complete my analysis, I would have better answer, I think, to this question at this time. You know, I try not to give recommendations when I don't have a complete, how do I say it, picture or kind of, I think recommendations must be based on the research, and that's the research that I'm conducting right now. And then it's not that my research will answer all the questions of inequality and will solve all the issues of inequality, because it's a very complicated issue. But I agree that COVID exacerbated, you know, some of the inequities, and then we have achievement gaps between, especially I think rural and urban gap is big in Kazakhstan, the rural disadvantages, and it's evident from, you know, the results of the unified national test, and our test is based, you know, we offer those based on merit, and most students, I think the big factor is not everyone has access to tutoring. Tutoring is really, I think, big in Kazakhstan. It's most students are able to get the state funds because they are able, so they have more resources. So either through their parents or they were able to attend a better school and some other. So it's not always the matter of your how do I say, personal abilities or something. So it's this structural issue, and it's, so as I said, it's a very complex issue, and I just don't want to jump ahead of because I haven't yet analyzed my data, but that's the very issue I'm studying, and I will have a better idea or a clear, like, how do I say it, idea or clear recommendations. Maybe let's talk when I'm near defense of my dissertation.
Okay, I will post another interview with you after you get the results. Thank you very much. So any other questions, please?
Thank you so much, Zhuldyz, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it, and as Mulder has just said, I think it's an amazing journey in terms of how difficult it was, not only in terms of your studies, but also in terms of all sorts of personal circumstances that intervene necessarily. I'm really fascinated by the topic of your research. If I could ask you to scroll back to the title of the thesis. Is it more about aspirations of marginalized youth, or is it more about the resources available to them, or the educational paths that they choose, being based or basing their decision on whatever circumstances they find themselves in? Which side of it you kind of lean toward more?
You mean aspirations versus their educational paths? Is that the difference, how you are differentiating between aspirations and their educational path?
No, what I'm, I guess, trying to understand in your dissertation, when you talk about this transformative power of education for marginalized youth, are you thinking about what motivates these people to go on to, say, higher education or other forms of education? Or are you more concerned about constraints that their circumstances put on them? Is it more the mechanics of the system, how it allows them to study, or is it about what is it in their psyche that keeps pushing them forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for the question, Asim. I think it's actually both, that I am conducting life history interviews with youth from rural and low-income backgrounds. So I'm studying their entire journey from their childhood and then through their current day. And so we talk about their experience before university, we talk about their experience during the university, and then we also talk about their experience after the university, and then what were the things, so yeah, what facilitated or constrained their pursuit of their educational and career aspirations, so how they decided to make the decision. So I'm trying to have I think complex understanding of the factors that supported or constrained their educational aspirations. Yes.
So you're basically listening carefully and trying to make out of those conversations what could be the lines of reasoning that people present you with, and
Yes.
which ones of them are kind of more frequent, or whether there is any common pattern that you could
Yes.
notice. I think that's yeah. This is a very exciting topic in itself. In connection with that, actually, I wanted to ask the journey that you yourself have described. Have you seen any other, say, non-Kazakhstani PhD students in University of Minnesota that you would be familiar with, people that you would know, who had anything similar? Is that anything absolutely unique to you as a Kazakh student?
You mean my own journey as a PhD student? I actually think no. How do I say it? Every PhD student, of course, has a unique journey. Everyone faces a unique set of challenges, but I wouldn't say it's unique because I'm Kazakh. I share identity of an international student, and some of the challenges I face, I think I share with international students, like largely speaking. And then there is this community, graduate students, grad student parents with whom we share similar challenges. And then as a PhD student, like with my peers, we face similar, like I wouldn't say, I think it's this combination of these different identities that kind of create a unique set of challenges for you. And I wouldn't say because I'm a Kazakh student, because of this, this is unique to me. I think I share many challenges with other students who share similar identities. Yes. Does that answer your question?
It sort of does.
I misunderstood your question. I'm not sure if I understood your question.
No, it does answer the question completely, but the reason I was asking was because this entire premise of important role of parents, of your parents, of your spouse's parents, who have invested so much personally into a deed which you chose for yourself, I think is something as a safety net very specific to our culture, to how in our culture in Kazakhstan. I don't know whether that's a Kazakh culture or whether that's Kazakhstani culture, or maybe it's a post-Soviet culture, of this heavy investment which we see as normal and kind of even normatively obligatory toward our kids, that we see ourselves, obligated by the fact of parenthood to invest extensively. And in my PhD, when I did my PhD, I conducted interviews with teachers, and a little bit, I think I was taken aback by how much people talk in Kazakhstan about this, investment into your children, investment into the future of next generation, rather than investment into the good of the world generally, or investment in your own development generally. It's, I think, a very important trait, which is something of our psychology. I think it reflects some of our national, well, largely speaking, national mentality. And the way, I wonder whether the way PhD students tell their stories of their, educational journey, that in itself, to me, sounded, in your story today, sounded a lot like, something that we would hear huge journeys, like in fairy tale stories, Kazakh magical stories, that say Yertosik, he would be definitely supported by his family, and then he would meet all sorts of friends, impossible friends. Somebody can drink a lake, somebody can do something else, but they each are important, although they're very different from each other, and they're a good team, and they support him, and he feels obliged to tell their stories, while this fairy tale about him is actually retold to the next generation. So all of that actually, I've enjoyed today's presentation. I've enjoyed your story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Asim. Yeah, and you I think brought up really important questions. I really appreciate that, and I think now I understood the kind of the question better in terms of how do I say, in terms of parents, for instance, support, and then parents supporting, like, for instance, I had young kids and my parents were supportive, and whether that's a common experience. I see some students do the same, for instance, especially I think maybe from China, Mongolia. I had some neighbors who, and we saw, like, parents, I had even, my mom was approached several times by Chinese parents. They thought she was Chinese. So I do see that, I wouldn't say it's completely unique when parents support their children. I do think there are like contextual differences, of course, and then the cultural differences. Yes, I agree with that. And that's probably also very important for me in my dissertation, as I try. So I reviewed the literature on this topic, and then what are there, like, the commonalities, and then what is unique to this context, and why we have to maybe see it differently. So that's a very important question, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Right.
Yes, Asim, actually, the topic you raised about the parents' role might be used as also aspiration for marginalized youth.
Yeah, it is big. In my dissertation, it is big. Yes.
Yeah, and especially when you mention Chinese parents, obviously Chinese parents would, due to one-child policy, would necessarily be compelled, or maybe their situation in itself kind of dictates that sort of approach to the younger generations, because those are the support generation in a way, once they're on their feet completely. Right.
Thank you very much, Asim. Zhuldyz, you know what? Actually, I think it will be great if you write a book in the future after you will be done with your PhD, like a kind of guidance for young parents in Kazakhstan with the family.
Yeah, that would be great.
We don't have this kind of book.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that would be great, I think.
Thank you very much, Zhuldyz, for your time. We really appreciate it, for your excellent presentation. I will upload it into our social media page, so I think people would find it interesting. And if anyone would have a question, they can write there. So I wish you the best of luck in your endeavor. And next time, I hope I will see you with a degree in the role of a doctor. So we'll have a next interview, hopefully.
So I hope so. Thank you so much for organizing the talk. I really appreciate that, and I hope it's helpful. And I'm happy to answer any questions if if there are more questions. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.